Welcome everyone to this Asian session market review for Japanese yen dollar. And we're on this daily time frame here. And one thing before we begin, note that all times are New York Eastern Standard Time. So as you can see below on the chart, it's that UTC4 for New York. So just to keep that in mind in case there's any confusion. So getting right into the analysis on the daily chart, we can see we have this breakaway gap here. And I also have an implied fair value gap just above it that would support the idea of this being a breakaway gap, wanting to send price higher. So the reason why I said this as an implied fair value gap, just because the high of this candle and then the open of this candle, you have that little gap in there, and we can see that price trades down into it and sends price higher. It also takes liquidity, as ICT always says. It's best buys happen obviously when price first takes liquidity on the sell side aspect, and then we go up. So we can see their sell stops residing all below these. You see how clean these lows are. So I'm going to draw it out just to show it a little easier. And as you can see that these lows are clean. Price runs those sell stops residing below and here, supporting the idea of this still staying as a breakaway gap, and price respecting this implied fair value gap, and then we send price higher. But specifically, we're talking about this day here. But the reason why I'm showing this daily is obviously to get that bigger overview as to where, smart money on the bigger time frame is drawing towards. And then I also have this rejection block on the daily, and it's really simple. When you just take your fib, you take the close, mid, and the high point of the candle you're looking towards, and this is all you have to do. And then that was my idea for this Monday. So obviously I know price is drawing towards that. That's my draw. And then if we drop down to our 1 hour time frame to get a bit of detail, and the first thing I always mark down is the midnight open. And the reason why I use this ICT concept, this crucial ICT concept, is that it allows you to frame your setups and providing you a filter, but also support towards if your idea is in your favor or it's against your favor. So anything above that midnight open is a premium for smart money. Anything below it is going to be a discount. So if we take our profit and loss tool here, you could think about it like this. And I also have a video link below where I talk about the midnight opening price if you guys are looking for more information on it. But really simply, you could just think about it as if you're above that midnight open, most likely price will want to accumulate shorts and try to head back below it or even further down, or at least to it. And if you're below that midnight open, most likely you're going to want to accumulate longs to go higher, because it's combining price and time. That's what it all is about. So in this idea, I have a 1 hour breakaway gap here. And the reason is because we didn't even come down into a consequent encroachment of it. But with the support of that 12 a.m. open combined with that 1 hour breakaway gap, this long idea during this session is what provided me the overall framework to go long there. So, and obviously with on the daily chart, we still have that this bigger time frame, this daily rejection block being the bigger draw for price. So it's really important that we still understand that we're still following that daily time frame bias. And then we drop down to the 15-minute, and it becomes a little bit more clear. So as we can see here, what are our lows or highs that are really obvious in price? Obviously, you could say it's right here. These highs are simply too clean, and we can see price took first sell stops here. It takes liquidity in the form of manipulation leg, because we consolidate, manipulation leg, and then distribution, going to this main draw on liquidity up here, because that was the main target for this session here. But I'll break down the session once we get to the lower time frames. But really, your main draw should be where are there clean highs or lows, or any main liquidity levels on these lower time frames where price will support the idea of the bigger time frame objective with your shorter time frame perspective. And once again, obviously, we're below that midnight open, as I stated before. So if we drop down to the 1 minute to show what happened during this session, I also have the 12 a.m. I also have the 8 p.m. opening price. It's also crucial for the power of 3. And this liquidity here, that was what I was showing before earlier, where we had price consolidate, sell stops taken, that's that manipulation leg, and then we distribute higher. So going into this a little further, the reason why I have the 8:30 to 9:30 session, I treat this like the Asian silver bullet, let's call it that. You know, don't quote me on this or anything. I don't think ICT talked about this specifically, but this, since the Asian market opens at 8, so right here, you could think about this kind of like 9:30 for US equities. For them, it's 9 a.m. So you let the first 30 minutes of trading pass, because just like ICT says, for the regular New York equities, from 9:30 to 10, you know, it's going to be manipulation, so it's better to let that pass. And then from that 10 to 11 session, his silver bullet in the AM session, that's where you're going to be most favored for your setups. So if we look a little further to how we would have framed the trade setup for this day, remember our main draw is that 15-minute main draw, but you have the sponsorship of the daily time frame as well. So right away we see price opens and it's already going higher. So already we're seeing bullish order flow in price. We've broken through all this. It's taken those sell stops. And then once you look into this further, we see, okay, where is price going to be looking towards to sort of get another discount? And where does it do it? Below midnight open. As I said before, your best buys are going to happen at or below or near midnight open. So as long as you have any of those three factors, you're going to have your probability of success towards whatever trading framework you have is going to be a lot higher by utilizing that simple ICT concept. And then we have this volume imbalance here. You can see price trades through it. Again, once the session starts, this is when you're starting to look for your setups. We can see price does a higher high here. Manipulation, like by taking sell stops, anyone here trying to buy early, we come up, fair value gap. So that could be a possible first entry. You could take your entry there. And you could also see that this is an inverted fair value gap as well. I'm going to make this orange just to make it a little easier to understand. As we can see, price touches the 50% of that perfectly without any sweat. But you combine that with that fair value gap that you also have there. We send price higher. Let's say you weren't able to get in there. Equal highs already. Retail is trying to essentially sell that. So what happens here? We have another fair value gap here. With this being a breakaway gap, we want to see that stay open if price is bullish. So we see price come down. It comes back up. Order block right here. We see price support that and also stay within that fair value gap. And notice the bodies. Look at the bodies respecting that in the wicks. I mean, that's perfectly algorithmic. And then what happens after here? We send price higher, and we have this little. If you guys also use ICT's new day opening gaps, new week opening gaps, we have a 1 minute opening gap practically here, where price essentially closed here, opened here, and you use that as support as well. And where do we target that main draw on liquidity? So if we tie this in also by utilizing DXY, so DXY is going to be your dollar index. If we look at what happened here on the daily, I was looking towards this new day opening gap, and I'm going to go on the daily just to show you guys. So my main draw was here, this new day opening gap, as well as this BISI, at least consequent encroachment. And if we drop down back to that 1 minute, we can see how, same thing, if you frame it side by side, I'm going to show you guys that as well. You draw out your 8 p.m. opening price. In this case, price was below midnight open, so you have to keep that in mind with yen. But as long as you have a framework idea over where price is drawing on the bigger time frames, you're going to have that way you have a foundation towards what you're looking for. You're not just going in random. And as we can see here with the power of 3, here's your 8 p.m. open. We go lower, higher, taking out buy stops all the way up here in the form of equal highs, and we displace lower. We have a trend line here that retail is obviously trying to buy, and then we have this breakaway gap here. Consequent encroachment stays untapped, validates the breakaway gap. We come lower, order block, and we displace lower. So if we were to put this side by side and really look at them both, I'm gonna put Japanese yen back and frame it really second by second and minute by minute. You can see how, so we open here, right? So dollar drops, comes up, takes the liquidity, and when we drop lower, breakaway gap. Let's say you weren't able to get here, you wanted to see dollar show some willingness first, and then once this pulls back in here, There's your breakaway gap. You combine both. You have the divergence of DXY with Japanese yen, and then from there you can get in long right at the order block. And notice both have an order block, nearly practically in the same, in the same exact candle. They both have an order block, so that gives you a strong idea as to say, okay, you know, my trade idea is being supported on the fact that they're both moving 1-to-1. And that's really important, that when these assets, when they move contrary to one another so perfectly like that, then you know you have strong order flow on your side. And then we displace up higher. You have DXY breakaway gap, and in that same area for yen, you have that 1 minute opening gap, and then we trade back up into that main draw, and then you can be out there. So I hope this video was useful to all of you, and I hope you guys found it insightful. In the description below, I'll be linking my midnight opening price video as well. Hope you guys check that out. Feel free to comment down below, like, and share, and thank you for your time.